Leave your brain at the dock, because we are looking at 69 of the dumbest, most ridiculous cruise ship complaints ever recorded. From passengers demanding the captain turn off the ocean volume to suing for missing the Titanic, these are 100% real. Get ready to question reality. Here are the worst passengers at sea. 1. One passenger actually demanded a full refund because the ocean was, and I quote, too loud. Apparently, the soothing sound of waves crashing against the hull was interfering with her beauty sleep. She genuinely expected the captain to somehow turn off the volume of the Atlantic Ocean at night so she could get some rest. I mean, did she think there was a giant mute button on the bridge? Next time, maybe she should book a hotel in the middle of the desert if she wants absolute silence. 2. A travel agent shared a story about a client who was furious after their Atlantic crossing. Why? Because they didn't get to see the Titanic. Yes, that Titanic. The one at the bottom of the ocean. This passenger filed a formal complaint stating that the cruise line falsely advertised the route because nobody pointed out the shipwreck. I'm not sure if they expected a glass-bottom boat or a submarine excursion, but honestly, missing the Titanic is usually considered a successful cruise. 3. You would think being surrounded by water would be a clue, but one guest was absolutely appalled that the swimming pools on the deck were filled with seawater. She claimed the salt made her eyes sting and ruined her expensive perm. She demanded that the crew drain the pool immediately and refill it with fresh bottled mineral water. Because obviously a ship carrying 4,000 people definitely has a few million gallons of premium water just lying around in the cargo hold for emergencies like this. 4. A superfan booked a themed cruise featuring the singer Gary Barlow, but she came back demanding her money back. Her grievance was that Gary didn't spend enough time with her personally. She was upset that he didn't join her for breakfast or sit by her sun lounger. She essentially paid for a concert ticket but expected a boyfriend experience. The cruise line had to gently explain that buying a ticket to see a celebrity perform does not actually include ownership of that human being for the duration of the trip. 5. Weather is unpredictable unless you are this specific passenger. A couple sued a travel company because the weather during their Caribbean cruise didn't perfectly match the photos in the brochure. They argued that the sky in the pictures was a deep, vibrant blue, but in reality it was a bit cloudy and gray. They genuinely believed the brochure was a binding legal contract guaranteeing perfect sunshine every single day. I guess Mother Nature didn't get the memo from the marketing department that week. 6. This one is a classic. A first-time cruiser filed a very angry report stating that the ship rocked too much and caused them seasickness. Now, keep in mind, they were on a floating vessel in the middle of the sea. They insisted that the cruise line should have stabilized the ocean or warned them that boats have a tendency to move on water. It is baffling how someone can book a maritime vacation and be shocked that physics still applies once you leave the dock. 7. A man stormed up to the guest services desk screaming that his cabin didn't have a sea view. After looking up his reservation, the staff realized he had specifically booked an interior stateroom, which is the cheapest option and famously windowless. When they pointed this out, he argued that he thought interior just meant cozy and assumed every room on a ship automatically came with a balcony. He demanded an upgrade for free because his complete lack of research was apparently the cruise line's problem. 8. A jealous husband actually lodged a complaint against a specific waiter in the main dining room. The reason wasn't bad service or cold food. No, the complaint was that the waiter was too handsome, and it was distracting his wife from paying attention to him. He requested that the crew member be reassigned to a different section, or better yet, forced to wear a mask. Imagine being so insecure that a charming waiter serving breadsticks threatens the stability of your entire marriage. 9. Traveling across the world means crossing time zones, but one lady wasn't having it. She complained that the constant time changes were messing up her medication schedule and her favorite TV shows. She requested that the captain stop changing the time on the ship's clocks until they got back home. She literally wanted the ship to exist in a bubble of time separate from the rest of the planet just so she didn't have to do a little math to figure out when to take her pill. 10. During a shore excursion to a pristine private island, a passenger returned to the ship in a foul mood. She went straight to the concierge to complain that the beach was too sandy. Apparently, the sand was getting everywhere, in her shoes, her bag, and her towel, and she found it unacceptable. She suggested that the cruise line should pave over the beach, or at least vacuum it better. I do not know what kind of beaches she is used to visiting, but usually, sand is the main ingredient. 11. Logic took a serious vacation with this next passenger. A purser reported that a guest genuinely asked if the crew slept on board the vessel. I am dying to know what the alternative was in their head. Did they think a fleet of helicopters flies in 4,000 staff members every morning and airlifts them out at night like a massive military operation? They seem to believe that the bartender and the captain just commute from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean every single day. Buddy, it's a ship, not a remote office. 12. A British couple went on a lovely Mediterranean cruise with a stop in Spain, but they came back with a severe grievance. They formally complained that there were too many Spanish people in Spain. They were genuinely annoyed that the locals in a foreign country had the audacity to speak their own language and exist in their own cities instead of rolling out a red carpet of English speakers just for them. They basically wanted the scenery of Europe without any of the actual Europeans. Spain came with Spanish people. Shocking. 13. Then we have the cheap ice guy. This guest marched up to the bar manager, absolutely irate, claiming that the ice in his drink was melting too fast. He accused the cruise line of budget cuts, insisting they were using cheap ice that couldn't withstand the heat. He demanded a refund on his beverage package because his frozen water had the audacity to turn back into liquid water. I didn't realize there was a luxury brand of ice that defies the laws of physics, but apparently this guy buys it. Sir discovered melting. Nobel Prize pending? 14. This might be the most expensive excuse for a lack of self-control in history. A woman threatened to sue the cruise line after she got pregnant during the voyage. Her argument was that the ship's romantic atmosphere lowered her inhibitions and practically forced her to conceive against her better judgment. She wanted the company to pay for the baby's upbringing because the ocean breeze and the buffet lighting were just too powerful to resist. She genuinely tried to frame the ship as an accomplice to her own biology. Your Honor, the sunset made me do it. 15. An older couple booked an outside stateroom and were furious when they arrived to find a roof over their heads. They argued that outside meant they would be sleeping literally outside on the deck under the stars. They were insulted that they were forced to sleep in a comfortable bed inside a climate-controlled room instead of shivering in a sleeping bag on a windy deck like survivors of a shipwreck. They demanded a downgrade to the open air because apparently luxury wasn't rough enough for them. They wanted camping. They bought a bed. 16. During a shore excursion to a rugged, historic coastline, a passenger filed a complaint that the terrain was too uneven. She was upset that there were no paved sidewalks or elevators installed on the side of a natural cliff face to accommodate her footwear. She claimed the cruise line was negligent for not terraforming a thousands of years old landscape just so she could walk around in her high heels without looking down. It is amazing how some people expect the entire world to be flattened just for their vacation convenience. Nature didn't get her customer service email. 17. One man declared war on the ship's noon signal. Every day, the ship blasts its horn as a tradition, and this guy demanded the captain install a silencer on the massive air horn because it interrupted his nap. He refused to move to a quieter spot and insisted that the crew muffle a vital maritime safety device just so he could get some shut-eye on the deck. He didn't seem to care that the horn is there to prevent collisions, not to annoy him personally. It's a horn, not a snooze button. 18. We have all heard of people missing the boat, but one couple blamed the ship for it. They were late returning from a shopping spree in Nassau and arrived at the pier to see the ship sailing away. They lodged a complaint stating the captain should have seen them running on the dock and turned the massive vessel around to pick them up. They truly believed that a schedule affecting thousands of people and massive port fees should be paused because they lost track of time buying t-shirts. The ship doesn't do U-turns for souvenir emergencies. 19. A family booked a wildlife watching cruise specifically to see whales, but when no whales appeared, the father demanded a full refund. He argued that the cruise line should have arranged for the whales to be there, speaking about the animals as if they were negligent staff members. He seemingly expected the captain to get on the underwater intercom and demand the marine life show up for their shift. The crew had to break the news that wild animals do not follow a corporate schedule. Whales are not hourly employees. 20. One passenger felt that the ocean was simply too deep for his liking. He told the staff that looking over the railing and knowing there were miles of water beneath him gave him anxiety. He requested that the captain steer the ship into shallower waters, preferably where he could see the sand. I am not sure he understands how giant cruise ships work, but usually, if you can see the seabed from the deck, you have a much bigger problem than anxiety. If you can see the bottom, congrats, you're stuck. 21. A woman complained that her cabin steward was rude because he didn't know her name on the very first day. Even though there are thousands of passengers on board, she expected him to have memorized the passenger manifest like a creepy computer before she even walked through the door. She took his lack of psychic ability as a personal insult and demanded a formal apology for his failure to instantly recognize her importance. She wanted him to download her biography into his brain instantly. He's a steward, not your psychic butler. 22. You would think a mystery cruise would be self-explanatory, but apparently not. A couple booked a mystery cruise, where the destination is a secret until arrival, and then complained that they didn't know where they were going. They said the suspense caused them too much stress and demanded to know the itinerary immediately. They literally paid money for a specific concept and then got angry that the concept was being executed correctly. They paid for a surprise and sued the concept of surprise. 23. A disgruntled passenger went to the front desk to complain about the propeller noise keeping him awake. He asked if the captain could turn the engines off at night and just let the ship drift to silence the hum. He thought a 100,000-ton vessel could just coast through the ocean for 8 hours like a car in neutral, without any consequences. The staff had to politely hint that without engines, you don't get to the next destination, you just get lost at sea. He wanted the ship on sleep mode. 24. Elevators on cruise ships are apparently very confusing for some people. One guest became extremely agitated because the elevator only went up and down. He filed a complaint stating that he wanted the elevator to take him to the front of the ship so he wouldn't have to walk down the hallway. He truly believed that the elevators were like magical transport pods that could move horizontally through the vessel to save him a 2-minute stroll. It's a lift, not a horizontal subway. 25. The buffet made me do it was essentially the argument of this next passenger. A woman threatened to sue the cruise line for her holiday weight gain, claiming the food was too tasty and the variety was overwhelming. She demanded compensation for a new wardrobe because her clothes no longer fit by the end of the 7-day voyage. She refused to take responsibility for her own fork and blamed the chefs for being too good at their jobs. The lasagna didn't force itself on you. 26. A very well-groomed lady was furious about the wind on the pool deck. She complained that the strong breeze was ruining her hair and requested that the captain turn off the wind or at least put up a giant dome. She failed to grasp that she was standing on a moving object traveling at 20 knots through the open ocean. She wanted the thrill of travel without the laws of aerodynamics getting involved. Ma'am, you are moving at 20 knots. 27. Geography is hard, but this is next level. A passenger on a Mediterranean cruise shouted at the shore excursion staff because the ship didn't dock in downtown Rome. He was outraged that he had to take a bus from the port of Civitavecchia to get to the Colosseum. He insisted that the captain should have just sailed the massive ocean liner up the Tiber River and parked it right next to the Vatican. Ships need water, Rome has pavement. 28. Housekeeping usually leaves cute towel animals on the bed, but one guest found them terrifying. He called security to report an intruder in his cabin, claiming a white monkey was staring at him from the mattress. When security arrived, they found a harmless monkey made of folded towels wearing the guest's sunglasses. He demanded the steward stop making art because he didn't want to be judged by his linens. Terrorized by a folded washcloth. 29. A romantic sunset is a highlight of any cruise, unless you are this guy. He complained that the sun set on the wrong side of the ship, meaning he couldn't see it from his balcony. He requested that the captain rotate the entire vessel specifically at dusk, so his room would face the horizon. He expected the navigation of a 100,000-ton ship to be altered just so he didn't have to walk up to the public deck. The captain doesn't control the solar system. 30. One couple was irate that their room was never cleaned during the entire voyage. They marched to guest services, screaming about living in filth and demanding a full refund. The staff checked the records and pointed out that the couple had left the "Do Not Disturb" sign on their door for 7 straight days. They thought the sign just meant "Don't knock," not "Stay out completely." The sign worked. You're welcome. 31. The water isn't blue enough is a surprisingly common grievance. One passenger argued that the ocean looked dark and scary compared to the bright turquoise in the marketing photos. She felt cheated that the Atlantic Ocean didn't look like a swimming pool and accused the cruise line of dyeing the water for the brochure. She wanted the captain to steer toward prettier water immediately because reality was bumming her out. The ocean doesn't use Instagram filters. 32. A fan of the classics was deeply disappointed by the entertainment. He filed a complaint that the Elvis tribute artist was not the real Elvis Presley. He felt the cruise line had misled him, even though the real Elvis has been dead for decades. He genuinely expected the king of rock and roll to come out of hiding just to perform Hound Dog on a Tuesday night in the Caribbean. Elvis has left the building and the planet. 33. During a kayaking excursion in Alaska, a woman complained that she got wet. She was paddling in a small boat on the water, surrounded by splashing paddles, yet she was shocked that moisture touched her clothing. She claimed the tour operator should have provided a dry kayaking experience or installed splash guards on the ocean. She wanted the adventure of the sea without the actual sea part. It is a water sport. Genius. 34. A man asked the concierge how to drive his car off the ship in Hawaii. When the staff explained that he couldn't bring his car and there is no bridge from Los Angeles to Honolulu, he was baffled. He thought the ship was a ferry, and that there was a secret underwater highway or a massive bridge spanning half the Pacific Ocean that everyone used. He was ready for a road trip that didn't exist. There is no interstate to the island. 35. The toilets on cruise ships use a vacuum flush system that is notoriously loud, but one passenger took it personally. She complained that the flushing sound was aggressive and frightened her every time she used the bathroom. She suggested the mechanics loosen the suction so it would be a gentler, more polite flush. She didn't realize that without that terrifying suction, the plumbing on a ship simply wouldn't work. It's a toilet, not a spa treatment. 36. A family on a Disney cruise line filed a complaint that there were too many children on board. They were upset that their quiet, romantic getaway was ruined by kids running around in Mickey Mouse ears. They booked a vacation on a ship literally designed for families, featuring cartoon characters at breakfast, and were shocked to find their target demographic everywhere they looked. Read the room or the giant mouse logo. 37. A woman went on a snorkeling excursion in the Caribbean and immediately filed a complaint about the wildlife. She was furious that there were too many fish in the water and said they were looking at her aggressively. She expected the ocean to be like a swimming pool, perhaps with a few plastic fish for decoration, not a living ecosystem. She actually suggested the tour operator net the area to keep the marine life away from her face. It's their house, you're the guest. 38. Branding can be confusing, but this is ridiculous. A man sued Celebrity Cruises because there were no famous people on board. He spent the entire week wandering the decks looking for Brad Pitt or Beyoncé, and felt completely scammed when he only found regular tourists. He argued that the name of the cruise line was false advertising, apparently not realizing it's just a marketing title, not a guarantee of rubbing elbows with Hollywood's elite. It's a brand name, not a promise. 39. During a cruise to Hawaii, a passenger was deeply disappointed by the volcanoes. He complained that the active volcano he came to see wasn't erupting at the exact moment his ship sailed past. He genuinely thought the cruise line controlled the geological activity of the Earth and could just flip a switch to make the lava flow for a photo op. He wanted a refund because the tectonic plates didn't perform on cue. Geology doesn't work on a schedule. 40. One guest was outraged that she couldn't watch her favorite local news channel from back home while cruising in the Mediterranean. She screamed at the front desk staff because the cabin TV only had international channels and movies, preventing her from seeing the weather report for a town she wasn't currently in. She traveled thousands of miles to Italy but was only concerned with what was happening in her living room in Ohio. You're in Italy, look out the window. 41. The captain's dinner is a fancy tradition, but one passenger took the title too literally. She complained that the captain didn't eat dinner at her specific table. She assumed that the captain would somehow sit and eat a full meal with every single one of the 3,000 passengers on board simultaneously. When told he has his own table and also has to drive the ship, she felt personally rejected. He's steering the vessel, not dating you. 42. A tourist on a European cruise was baffled by the concept of foreign currency. He lodged a formal complaint that the shops in France and Italy refused to accept his US dollars at a 1-to-1 exchange rate. He was insulted that an entire continent didn't change its monetary system just to make his souvenir shopping slightly more convenient. He actually asked why they didn't use real money. It's called a foreign country for a reason. 43. Weather complaints are common, but this one takes the cake. A passenger on an Alaskan cruise demanded compensation because it was foggy. She argued that the cruise line should not have sailed into the fog because it ruined her view of the glaciers. She seemed to believe the captain had a weather machine or giant fans to blow the clouds away, but chose not to use them just to spite her. They can't control the clouds. 44. Privacy is important, but physics is immutable. A man complained that if he leaned his entire body out over his balcony railing and craned his neck to the left, he could see his neighbor. He claimed this was a violation of his privacy and a design flaw of the ship. He wanted the ship to be redesigned so that he could hang off the side of the vessel without seeing another human soul. Don't lean out naked. 45. A woman complained that the ship was too big, and she got tired walking from her room to the buffet. She had booked a trip on one of the largest megaships in the world, which is essentially a floating city, and then was shocked that it required physical movement to get around. She suggested the crew install moving walkways everywhere, or provide her with a personal golf cart for the hallways. It's a ship, not a treadmill. 46. Room service is a luxury, but you have to actually eat it. A guest called to complain that his breakfast was cold. It turned out he had ordered it, let it sit on the table while he took a 45-minute shower, and then was surprised that the laws of thermodynamics had cooled his eggs. He blamed the kitchen for not providing food that stays piping hot forever, regardless of how long he ignored it. It's toast, not a heating pad. 47. A bride-to-be on a destination wedding cruise had a meltdown about the humidity. She complained that the salty sea air was making her hair frizzy and demanded that the ship do something about the atmosphere. She wanted the captain to somehow dehumidify the open ocean surrounding the vessel so her wedding photos would look perfect. She expected a climate-controlled bubble to extend miles off the coast just for her big day. It's the ocean, not a salon. 48. A man booked an early bird excursion to see a local landmark at sunrise but was furious about the timing. He complained that the tour started too early in the morning. He asked the shore excursion desk if they could reschedule the sunrise for around 10 a.m. so he could sleep in. He genuinely wanted the sun to delay its celestial appearance to better fit his vacation sleep schedule. The sun doesn't have a snooze button. 49. Sleeping arrangements can be tricky, but this is standard practice. A couple complained that their king-size bed was actually two twin beds pushed together. This is how almost every cruise ship operates to allow flexibility for different guests, but they were horrified by the tiny crack in the middle under the sheets. They claimed it ruined their romantic getaway and demanded a single, giant mattress be helicoptered onto the ship immediately. Just cuddle closer. 50. Geography class clearly failed this next passenger. Upon crossing the equator, a man stormed up to the bridge to complain that he didn't see the big red line. He had seen the line drawn on every map in school and genuinely expected a massive crimson stripe painted across the surface of the Pacific Ocean. He felt cheated that the captain didn't stop the ship so he could take a photo straddling the hemisphere divider. It's a map line, not a floating rope. 51. A fishing enthusiast caused a scene when security confiscated his gear. He had brought a deep-sea fishing rod and a cooler full of bait, planning to fish off his private balcony while the ship was moving at 20 knots. He argued that since he paid for a room on the water, he had the right to catch his own dinner. He didn't understand that, at cruising speed, his line would just snap and likely take out a seagull. It's a cruise, not a trawler. 52. The mandatory safety drill is a bore, but it saves lives. One woman, however, tried to opt out by signing a waiver claiming she didn't plan on sinking. She argued that the drill interfered with her tanning time and told the crew that if the ship went down, she would just figure it out in the moment. She treated a potential maritime disaster like a minor inconvenience she could just improvise her way through. Survival is mandatory. Tan lines are optional. 53. A guest fell asleep on a deck chair in the shade but woke up 2 hours later with a sunburn because the Earth had the audacity to rotate. She filed a formal complaint blaming the ship for moving the shade away from her while she napped. She insisted that the captain should have adjusted the ship's course to keep her in a permanent shadow, regardless of the sun's position in the sky. The sun is a moving target. 54. Paranoia reached new heights with a passenger who complained that the crew members were speaking their native languages to each other. He was convinced that anytime the staff spoke Tagalog or Indonesian, they were specifically gossiping about him. He demanded that all employees speak English at all times, even during their private breaks, just so he could be sure they weren't making fun of his Hawaiian shirt. They probably are talking about you now. 55. While cruising through the stunning fjords of Alaska in July, a family complained that there was no snow on the ground at the port. They had seen pictures of Alaska in winter and assumed the state was a frozen wasteland year-round. They were genuinely upset that they had to wear t-shirts instead of parkas and demanded a refund because the climate didn't match their stereotypical expectations. Real life isn't a snow globe. 56. One lady booked a cabin on the lowest passenger deck and was furious that she didn't have an underwater view. She assumed that the lower decks of a cruise ship were submerged like a submarine, with glass walls looking out into the coral reefs. When she realized her window just looked out at the dock or the waves like a normal boat, she claimed false advertising. She wanted the Finding Nemo experience. It's a hull, not an aquarium. 57. A frequent traveler complained that the sea looked too monotonous. After 3 days at sea crossing the Atlantic, she told the guest services manager that the view was boring because it was just water in every direction. She suggested the cruise line install floating billboards or artificial islands along the route to break up the scenery. She essentially wanted the ocean to be landscaped for her entertainment. It's water. It looks like water. 58. An unlimited beverage package is a perk, not a challenge, but don't tell that to this guy. He threatened to sue for breach of contract because the bartender cut him off after he fell off his bar stool. His argument was that unlimited means until I die, and the crew had no right to stop serving him just because he couldn't stand up or speak a recognizable language. He wanted a refill, not a safety intervention. It's a drink package, not a death wish. 59. Technology confuses many, but this is special. A passenger watching the ship's GPS map channel on his cabin TV complained that the little ship icon wasn't moving fast enough. He thought it was a live drone feed and was upset that he couldn't see himself waving from his balcony on the screen. He wanted the animated graphic to zoom in and capture his vacation moments in real time. It's a graphic, not a spy satellite. 60. A woman spilled red wine on her dress during dinner and demanded the cruise line pay for the dry cleaning. Her reasoning? The ship rocked. She claimed that the captain hit a wave on purpose just as she was taking a sip. She refused to accept that being on a floating vessel involves occasional movement and insisted that the ocean should have been perfectly flat during her meal service. The wave owes me a drink. 61. During a shore excursion to a tropical rainforest, a couple complained that it was too humid and buggy. They were shocked that a jungle, famous for its rain and insects, actually contained moisture and bugs. They suggested that the tour operators should air condition the forest and spray the entire ecosystem with pesticide before tourists arrive. They wanted the nature experience without the actual nature part. It's called a rainforest for a reason. 62. An art lover was disappointed by the ice carving demonstration on the pool deck. He complained that the beautiful swan sculpture melted after a few hours in the Caribbean sun. He felt the artist had used inferior ice and expected the frozen water to remain solid permanently in 80-degree heat. He wanted a refund on the show because the art didn't defy the laws of thermodynamics. Ice melts. Lesson over. 63. A guest booked a cruise specifically during hurricane season because the prices were lower, and then was outraged when a tropical storm altered the itinerary. She screamed at the captain for steering the ship away from the dangerous storm to keep everyone safe. She genuinely preferred sailing directly into a hurricane to maintain her schedule rather than suffer the inconvenience of a missed port. She valued her calendar over her survival. 64. One man was furious that the all-you-can-eat buffet eventually closed at night. He argued that all-you-can-eat implies a 24-hour challenge where the food never stops coming. He arrived at 3 a.m. demanding prime rib and was insulted when he was offered only pizza and cookies. He felt his rights as a glutton were being infringed upon by the kitchen staff needing to sleep. Even the chef needs a nap. 65. A very confused passenger complained that the ship's photographer didn't capture her good side in the candid photos. She demanded that the cruise line delete the photos from their database and retake the moments from the previous day, restaging the sunset and her spontaneous laughter. She treated the onboard paparazzi like her personal production crew and expected reality to have a reshoot option. Life doesn't have a rewind button. 66. Noise complaints are standard, but this one was about the ship daring to travel while people sleep. A woman complained it felt creepy to go to bed in one port and wake up closer to the next, like the ship was moving without her permission. She demanded the captain only sail during daylight so she could personally watch the progress like it was a parade. Ma'am, you booked transportation, not a stationary resort. 67. A couple on their honeymoon complained that the moon wasn't bright enough. They had envisioned romantic moonlit walks on the deck, but it happened to be a new moon phase during their trip. They blamed the cruise line for poor planning and suggested they should have scheduled the voyage for a brighter lunar cycle or installed artificial moonlight. They wanted the cosmos to coordinate with their wedding date. The moon is not on the payroll. 68. One passenger felt that the ship was too rocky while it was docked in port. The ship was tied to the pier, barely moving an inch, but he claimed he could still feel the motion and it was making him dizzy. He demanded that the crew put down landing gear or stabilizers that would bolt the ship to the ocean floor to stop it from floating entirely. He wanted a boat that didn't behave like a boat. It floats. That's the point. 69. And finally, the ultimate complaint. A woman demanded a full refund for her entire cruise because she didn't have fun. There was no specific issue. The food was good, the weather was fine, the service was great. She just admitted she was a miserable person who couldn't enjoy anything. She argued that the cruise line guaranteed the vacation of a lifetime, and since she was grumpy, they breached the contract. Her mood was the only thing that sank. That was 69 reasons why cruise ship staff deserve a massive raise. Now I need to know, which passenger was the absolute worst? Was it the vacuum the beach lady, or the guy who thought the elevator was a subway? Roast them in the comments below. Drop a like if you have common sense, and subscribe for more madness.